Recording is on.
All right, we're here for the wallet improvement project call number 6. This time we're going to be taking a look at Muun wallet. Part of the impetus for this was, one, we just, had a lot of discussions about Muun in the design community for the past several months. So we've been working on integrating Lightning into the design guide. And then kind of another thing that made us select this wallet is just that I've witnessed it being discussed a lot while I was in El Salvador recently. Seen people basically recommending it as a good wallet for new users. So decided we wanted to take a look at this one today. And I think maybe before we start talking about the onboarding flows and all that, it might be just good time to point out that Muun handles things a little bit differently than other wallets. I don't want to say anything too inaccurate here, but since I'm not really a wallet engineer, but the way I understand it is they do some things a little differently. I think it's supposed to be, it's not really like a Lightning node running on the phone. It's something like, they accept the Lightning payment for the user, and then they, execute a submarine swap or something to that effect. Can everybody see my screen okay?
Yep.
I think just instead of talking, trying to cover the technical stuff too in depth, I'll just go ahead and point out that they've got a website here, muun.com, where you can find information about the company and download the wallet and all that. And then they have this blog.muun.com, and they've got some really, good blog posts on here that kind of describe, some of the stuff they're doing with taproot, and then their multi-signature model, and why they handle their backups the way they do. And they've got some extensive information about submarine swaps and stuff like that. And they have it in English as well as Spanish. I want to say they're based in Argentina. I might be wrong on that. But somewhere in, I believe, South America. So they've got a lot of really good information on their blog, and they handle the tech stack a little bit differently than some other Lightning wallets do. So with that being said, might just turn it over here to see if anybody has any thoughts on this wallet. I've certainly did my own kind of research on this, and I've had some kind of issues I want to raise. But Christoph, would you be interested in starting us off, or would you want me to show off my findings?
Yeah, sure. I can kick us off.
I'll stop sharing my screen and let you take over.
Okay. So here's this Figma file that's also in the notes here. And if you look at the top here that says January 12th, so these are screenshots that I took. I think that was fairly briefly after that big version 2 of Muun came out with this big redesign. And because I liked it a lot, I think it was great. And it was one of the first wallets that had this. It offers Bitcoin and Lightning, but also has this unified balance where you don't have two balances. You're not quite sure why, and you're not sure how to get a balance from one to the other and what that really means. It just unified the whole thing. But as you said, there's actually no Lightning account or node. It kind of does Lightning, but then it always puts things back on chain, which then also has a big impact on the whole backup process because you only need to, with Bitcoin on-chain, you only need to back up once, basically. If you have Lightning, you need to back up all the time because there's this channel data that constantly changes as you make transactions. So it actually has pretty big implications. And as far as I understand, they also are working on a bigger update with Lightning. I think I saw that somewhere. But overall, I like it a lot. My son gets paid his allowance in Bitcoin using Muun, and he's found it very intuitive. He always just hands me like the Lightning QR code. I scan it with SUS or something else, and then allowance is done, and he's kind of happy. The only thing that trips him up sometimes is like this little arrow here when he wants to look at his transactions. That's the thing where even like 6 months, 8 months of having used it, he still like has to think about it and look for it. That's something I noticed. And when you tap it, I think the screen slides up or it slides in from the right and shows you your transactions. So that has not been intuitive. But hiding the transactions here does create for a very clean interface and entry point. Like you come here and you're not bombarded with just a ton of transactions. So yeah, there's that. Maybe that arrow could instead say, last transaction 5 days ago or transaction pending. Like it's just a little bit more, like something about transactions. The other thing that I wanted to point out was this here, which is the taproot update flow, which it requires an update to your emergency kit. So the emergency kit is a PDF that gets stored to your iCloud or Google Drive with all of kind of the important information. If you lose the wallet, then you can restore it. In addition to the emergency kit, there's like a password you need to save. And those two things then, if everything goes wrong, you can restore your funds. And this technical update to Bitcoin Taproot requires an update to the emergency kit. I thought they handled it really well. So it gets introduced to you as level up your payments. And then it says save with each payment by activating Taproot. So as a user, activating Taproot, that's meaningless to me. Like if I didn't work in this full time, I wouldn't know what that means. Okay, like I'm activating like a carrot, or what does that even do? But I understand save with each payment. I can understand that. So I'm just trying it out. And then it takes me through these 3 screens here, which talks about how big and updated this is for Bitcoin. And it also repeats here that it becomes cheaper and less traceable. So I understand, okay, I save money, I have privacy benefits. So I'm in, no matter what this Taproot thing might exactly be. Now it gets explained on the second screen here, that it enables powerful scripts. I don't really know what that means. Like, what's more powerful about it? How can I do more? Do I have new features in the app? That's not totally clear to me. But I understand the next part, that this upgrade it's apparently powerful. I don't know why, but it requires an update to my emergency kit. So okay, I'm on board with that. And then the third screen has this reminder that it's an update, but it's really secure and it's really simple. Nothing much changes. That's important because as a user, I might always be concerned that I might do something wrong and I might lose my funds. So it's nice to have this reaffirmation here. Continuing, it takes me to my choice of where I want to store my emergency kit. Since I've already done that before, I don't know why it asks me again. Could have just used the previously chosen method that I already used. And I'm not sure why Google Drive is recommended. This was on an iPhone, so I would assume iCloud would be kind of the default. I did not look into other clouds or what happens if you say, I don't want to use cloud storage. So once I clicked Save to iCloud, it told me to verify my emergency kit. That's important. It does not tell me where exactly in iCloud my emergency kit gets stored. It also doesn't tell me that this is a PDF. I think that'd be kind of helpful if it says, we just saved emergency kit.pdf in your documents folder, something like that. But open in iCloud does open it. I still don't know where exactly it is, but it didn't load here for a few seconds, probably still syncing. So I was kind of concerned for a second. But then it loaded and I was kind of confident that it worked out, even though I still didn't know exactly where it was. So I was happy with that. And then now I'm ready for Taproot and my payments are cheaper and less traceable. So I'm a happy user now. So I like going through this flow. I think it's really well done. So good job, Muun crew there. I know you spent a lot of time thinking through these in detail. So that was kind of the main thing that I wanted to point out. We can also look at other things.
I'm glad you brought up that taproot flow. I have some screenshots on my phone, and I hadn't gotten around to sharing those with anybody yet. So I'm glad you did, because I was in El Zonte when it was like a couple days after taproot went into effect, and I think I was trying to buy a coconut with Muun Wallet or something like that. Where they chop it open and put a straw in it for you. And it's like, I was about to make the transaction, and I opened up Muun, and it was like, oh my God, you need to do a taproot update, emergency kit, da da da. And I was a little stressed out by it, because I was like in the middle of making a transaction, and it was like asking me to, do something with my emergency kit again. So I kind of wished I could have saved that update for later and not been forced to do it.
They forced you through it before you could make a payment?
I'm pretty sure, yeah, if I remember correctly. Or maybe I was just so excited. Maybe I was just like so excited about, taking these screenshots that I was just like, oh, let's do it right away. But like, I'm curious, if you zoom in on the taproot flow, does it give you an option to go back?
Yeah, there's a little back arrow up here. Here I can go back here and here and here.
It may be that I just imagined that then.
Yeah.
I could just be remembering that wrong.
Yeah, I mean, even if you didn't read anything, you could just click through this in like a minute, but then you wouldn't know what you actually did. So
so that might have been my bad. To your point about the cloud, provider. You already did choose a cloud provider when you backed up the wallet on your first onboard. Maybe it's a good thing that they ask you again, because it reminds you. It makes the user like actively think about where their backup is stored. Like, it's instead of it just like chucking it, because like it could be that someone set up the wallet like a year ago and they don't even remember where the emergency kit is. So maybe it's good that where they're prompting them to actually think about where it's being stored. I don't know.
Yeah. I guess one thing I forgot to mention here is that, and that's something in general that I feel like would be nice for Muun to do, is it says my payments will be cheaper, but how much? It's like 1%, 20%, 50%. Like, does it even matter? And how do I notice that? And I also think that they're not super transparent about fees, because they just want to hide all of this stuff. But I do think there are times where fees, they're not consistent fees. They're not always 1% or 10 sats or whatever. From what I've heard from other people too, is that sometimes, surprisingly, a larger fee shows up, which has something to do with, submarine swaps or channel management or other stuff, or mempool being full and other things in the background that you're actually not aware of. So I'd be interested to see, as a user, like, some information about exactly what this means.
Yeah, that would be good.
But let me go into the settings real quick and see if they have, if it is there, but just hidden somewhere.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. Let's see.
Well, interesting. I just went to the Bitcoin network settings, and there's an option called default to taproot, and it's disabled, which makes me think that, well, am I even using that right now? Didn't I just update to it?
Yeah, that's right. Many services are not yet compatible with Taproot and may label your addresses as invalid. If you make Taproot the default, you need to manually change the address type to SegWit or Legacy every time this happens. Ooh, I'm curious, if I turn that on and then I go try to make a Bitcoin address, if I try to receive something, it's got a BC1 address. But if I go to address settings, this is cool. So now when I go to receive via Bitcoin, I can go to address settings, and there's a little drop down where I can say Taproot, SegWit, or Legacy. And then the SegWit, I get another BC1 address, and then the Legacy, you get the ones that begin with 3. Interesting.
Yeah, Mo, I'm not sure. Are you familiar with how fees work in Bitcoin and Lightning?
No, I mean, am I familiar with wallets? Yes. But I'm not familiar. When I saw you guys talking about Lightning all over the forum, it's another language to me. Yeah. So I'm just trying to understand what Lightning is by listening to you guys. Yeah.
Okay. So it's like there are 2 networks, and there's a Bitcoin network and there's the Lightning network, and they function pretty differently. And one of the big differences is that, in a way, Lightning is kind of more complex. It's more complex to get started and get going. It requires more management of the funds and whatnot. But if it works really well, then you pay almost no fees. You pay like $0.001 fees. But if you're on the Bitcoin network, if you're, you might pay a fee from like 50 cents up to, I don't know, what's like a high fee, $8 or something.
Yeah.
So it can be, it's like there's a factor of multiple times that it just gets more expensive. And since Muun handles this Bitcoin Lightning, like which network's being used behind the scenes, it'd be kind of good to know like when it uses which and and what fees will be charged. Because like if we live in Europe or the US, like we can live with that, with like these types of fees. But if you live somewhere else, then a fee of multiple dollars might be a ton of money for you.
So just to see if I understand correctly, Muun uses the Bitcoin network and the Lightning network, and they alternate between the two.
Yes, they behind the scenes they use both of them.
But it's not really clear for you as a user which one is being used.
And for them, that's a feature, not a bug, because
Yeah.
I think from their perspective, they don't want people to have to worry about that, gratuitous level of technical detail.
Yeah. And can I ask another question? So obviously because it's less fees, so you would pay less fees using the wallet. If a wallet would be running more on the Lightning network, then it would be possibly more attractive to users because it has less fees.
And faster. The idea is that the main chain Bitcoin is really good for final settlement, and really good, as a result, really good for large amounts of money. But Lightning is better for fast, quick payments. So if you want to buy a cup of coffee and then go buy lunch and do all these kind of daily spending activities, you would want to be on Lightning.
Got it. Okay. I'm glad I know a little bit of what Lightning does now, because I've seen it all over the forums, but I was just like, I'll get it. I just need to just listen.
Bitcoin's good if you want to send, pay your employee, $2,000 or something like that, or send some money to your family or something, and like a big, large payment. But then like Lightning is what, is going to empower people to be able to just make daily transactions in Bitcoin.
Got it. Interesting.
So I think I took some kind of sloppy notes as you were speaking, Christoph, and I should probably clean those up and organize those a little better, but it works for now. I've got a couple of thoughts I wanted to share, and I think I'm just going to share my screen and but look at your same Figma board. Let's see. Window, Figma. Okay, so everybody can see my Figma screen, okay?
Yep.
When I close like all my 1 million tabs here. So let me just pull up some of my notes on another right here. So yeah, I mean, overall, I've had largely pretty positive interactions with Muun Wallet as well. I think if I can find a screen that zooms in on the backup process here, that would be good. So the email recovery was an interesting option, and I don't want to speak too out of turn about this, but I've had reports from a friend that got locked out of Muun Wallet, and I want them to they're not on this call, but I want them to go ahead and make sure that they can document exactly what happened if they haven't already, so we can flag that as an issue. But they ran into some issue with the email recovery. It was something to the effect of I'm trying to figure out, I'm still trying to parse exactly what happened, but they didn't set up the email option. They opted out of doing that. And I don't know. They got locked out somehow. I want to figure out what exactly went wrong there. But this isn't someone who's new to Bitcoin. They're a Bitcoin Power user, so they felt like something really went wrong with the whole email recovery process, and I want them to document what that is. I was able to set up the email thing, no problem. It sent me a verification email, and I set it up and all of that, so it's fine. Then I went through step 2, create an alternative backup, and there's this whole section here where we set up the recovery code and all of that. I'm curious to know why it is they use a different type of recovery code than the standard 12 or 24 word mnemonic seed phrase. And I bet if I went on their blog, I could learn more about that. I'm sure they have a blog post about it. I'm curious if it has something to do with their heavily customized tech stack.
I can answer that one because Dario from Muun, he answered that in some conversations that happened. And I believe the 12, whatever word recovery phrases, they work well for English speakers, if I remember correctly.
I was going to ask that next.
Yeah, it worked well for English speakers, but not so well that those words are just not memorable or intuitive for non-native or the non-English speakers, and that's why. And they had a lot of people just complaining about it. So I think it came from actual user feedback and user communication. But I believe their whole system works differently, and it's more customized. And because I think you need the recovery code, but you also need the emergency kit, and those two things together, I believe, allow you to recover everything, because it's not just a single sig, it's actually a multi-sig setup, and that's why they have output descriptors and other fun things going on.
I think the idea, that makes perfect sense with the language thing. I might be wrong here, but I think the idea is that if you want to recover your wallet with Muun, like let's say you lost your phone, you downloaded Muun on your new phone, I think you would be able to get by just fine with this code. The idea being that they have the other key backed up on their server, right? And I think the recovery kit is for if you want to recover your funds completely independent of Muun, like you want to say I'm tired of using this wallet, I'm tired of this company, I want to recover my funds all on my own, and that's when you would need the recovery kit, I think.
Yep.
So that makes perfect sense. Yeah, I mean, the as a native English speaker, the 24 words in English are perfectly easy for me, but I can imagine how 24 words in a foreign language would be very overwhelming for somebody. So that makes sense. They have a new thing. Having said that, one thing that kind of bothered me, and this is not just Muun, but many other Bitcoin wallets as well, really bothers me when they ask the user to type in every single word of the recovery phrase, and they don't tell you that you've gotten a word wrong until you've typed in the whole thing. I don't know, I just find that annoying. Imagine if you typed in this, obtuse looking number, string of numbers and letters, and you make a mistake on the first little cluster here, the second letter, you make a mistake, and it doesn't tell you you made a mistake until you get through the entire thing. So I really think that you should just I feel like you should just be every little nugget of letters here, I think you should tell them that they got it wrong on every little nugget. You got this nugget wrong, and then there's that.
Yeah, I think a lot of times that's not done, so you can't brute force, you can't just guess characters until you're all the way through. But in this scenario where, where you just saw the code and then you're typing it back in, I think there's little risk that, somebody else is just trying to, it's just a confirmation also, right?
Yeah.
I think they could do this here, either by individual letter or by a 4-letter block.
Yeah. The 4-letter block seems like a happy medium because you can't just brute force it too much, but it still shows it so that you don't have to wait until the end. I think I had fairly similar experience to you with the emergency kit. It went, pretty good. I didn't have too much lag or delay, but I also kind of wasn't entirely sure where exactly it saved it to. Now I'll go and say I onboarded myself to Muun on iOS probably 4 or 5 months ago. Today I actually tried it on an Android phone because I've been having some there's been a lot of Android issues that I've been interested in testing out on Bitcoin and Lightning wallets. I've been hearing a lot of issues and stuff, and I just, I realized that the user experience isn't always the same. It could be more diverse and varied than, if you're testing out a wallet on iOS every single time. And one thing that I did have happen is, I think when I did the email backup flow, which I'll provide screenshots for after the call, but on the email backup flow, when you type it in, it's like, hey, we sent you a verification email, open your email. The button did not work. So it gives you this little button that says open your email app. It looks kind of like this. It's like down here at the bottom, but it says like, okay, open your email app. And that button just did not work for me on Android. I don't know what it was, but I tapped it a million times and that button would not work. So that was another kind of little glitch I found. Let's see, I'm going through my notes here. So another kind of thing that is a little bothersome that I noticed is when I send a payment, or like, let's say this, when I receive a payment, well, one thing I did notice is that when we receive payments, they default to on-chain, which is, again, I'm curious about why that is.
Yep.
And I understand that they handle things differently in their tech stack and abstract things a little differently, but just even more so, it just seems like Lightning should be the default. Because I mean, if this thing is giving us like a Bitcoin address here, and if someone else with another Lightning wallet tries to scan it to reimburse their friend for dinner or something like that, I think that's just going to involve friction if it's generating on-chain addresses. And like, let me put it this way, okay. For Muun, for their users, they don't really have to worry about the distinction between Bitcoin and Lightning. They don't have to worry about the fees too much. I think Muun tries to abstract a lot of that away from them, but their friend who might be trying to pay them does have to worry about on-chain fees. And I'm just curious. I mean, I don't want to bash it hard if I don't understand the reason why they made that design decision, but it was a constant problem I noticed in El Salvador with on-chain being the default for Chivo, and I'm just really curious why Muun chose on-chain as the default. So I might reach out to them and kind of see if I can pick their brain about why they felt that was a good decision. But another kind of issue, and I've noticed this just while I was in El Salvador trying to make daily payments, is it really doesn't notify you very much when you make a payment. So if I make a Lightning invoice here, and we split up the bar tab, we paid the bartender, one check, and then me and my friends are all gonna, say, okay, I paid for it. Everybody just pay me. So I make a little Lightning invoice. And I say, hey, Christoph, can you pay me over Lightning? And Christoph pays me, and the payment shows up complete on his phone. All I get on my phone is just, if I have the volume turned on, I might get like a little bing when this Lightning invoice is paid. I don't get any notification though, like on screen here, that this invoice has been paid. It just stays on screen as though it's unpaid. And I have to know that it's been paid. I have to say, Christoph has to tell me, well, it shows up paid on my phone. And then I have to hit the back button and I have to go back to the transaction screen, which is hidden, as he pointed out. Where is it? It's here. This kind of hard to find button to find the transaction. So I have to back out of the Lightning invoice, find this button, and then pull up the transaction to show that I've been paid. Or I can see that it might be reflected in my balance. But I just thought that was interesting. And I say it might sound like I'm being like nitpicky and all that, but I ran into an interesting scenario unrelated to Muun in El Salvador, where me and another person owed the same food vendor the same amount of money. Like we both owed the guy $3. So the guy created a Lightning invoice on his phone for me, for $3. And I scanned it to pay it. And this guy standing next to me scans the same invoice. And I'm like, whoa, bro, you can't do that. You can't pay my Lightning invoice. He's like, well, I owe him $3. And I was like, yeah, but you can't do that. You can't reuse a Lightning invoice. And he says, but it's letting me. And to those of us who study Lightning more deeply, that's an important detail, because reusing a Lightning invoice twice is a security risk. You run the risk of the Lightning payment not making it to its destination if a malicious node in the network basically steals the money because the payment secret's been revealed. And so I mean, what I would really love as a user and also as someone who's, constantly worried about these kind of InfoSec things, I would love it is as soon as Muun receives the payment, instead of just playing a sound effect, I would love it if it comes up with a little animation that says, boom, payment received. And then it obliterates this, QR code so that nobody can pay. One, so that the user knows that the payment has been received and doesn't have to go fishing through their transaction screen to find it, but also to alleviate the potential security risk of two people trying to reuse the same invoice. Now, long-winded way of saying it, but I felt that the problem required a little bit of description and analysis. But beyond that, those were my kind of nitpicks, and I think Christoph has already laid out the basic user flow very well.
Yeah, but what you're talking about right now, those are the really time-sensitive moments where you want everything to go smoothly, and both parties in that transaction on both ends, you want them to be absolutely 100% sure what's happening. So being super responsive there is just the most important thing. That makes a ton of sense. Interestingly, I just I went to I want to try something. I went to LNURL Toolbox and tapped send in Muun, and I scanned an LNURL Pay QR code, and it says looking to receive via Lightning. So it reads the LNURL Pay code as a receive, as a withdraw code. Right? It kind of gets confused here a little bit.
Interesting.
And then I can still go back to send. Hold on. Or I can press receive, and then it tells me there's an error message. Like, oh, is this LNURL withdraw?
Interesting.
So there seems to be some issues with LNURL.
Okay, good. We should document that. We should create steps to reproduce and open those up as issues.
Yeah. So I'll send you the link. This is LNURL Toolbox, where you can test those QR codes. You have test QR codes you can scan, and then see how the application reacts to it.
Okay, I'm documenting that in the notes. Oh, another issue before I forget that I want to talk about. This doesn't really involve me sharing my screen, but yeah, very important issue. So another important reason why I wanted to test this out on Android is, me and Arvin and John's had some issues in El Salvador with Android QR codes. And I mean, we've talked about this probably in other calls before, but, we had these issues where Arvin and this other dude had Muun on their phone and another Lightning wallet, and they had them on Android phones. And they were basically, we're at a restaurant and people are, the waiter is, trying to give us our check, using his little merchant device. And I opened it up on my iPhone and paid the invoice, no problem. It was so quick. And then these other guys are trying to scan these QR codes on Android, and they cannot get the QR codes to read. And it's because the video screen that reads the QR code is completely out of focus. And I wanted to replicate this issue on my own Android phone, and I was able to replicate the issue today as well. Best way I can think to describe the issue is just that there's something going on, I think, with some of these Android camera libraries, though I want to leave that to the engineers to diagnose the issue. But basically, I can take this Android phone right here, try to, well, let me tell you this way. I take the iPhone here and I scan the invoice, and let's say, it pulls up the QR code reader, the image is soft. I can tap the phone and it'll refocus the image. Or most of the time, the iPhone is so smart that it just refocuses the image automatically. I can take this Android phone here and look at the QR code, and it is totally soft. It's overexposed, it's too bright. Like if I'm trying to scan two phones, the image is too bright, it's too soft, and I try to tap it, it will not refocus. I have to move the phone closer And it doesn't change the fact that the image is too bright. Like it was fine here because I was in my office and it was, it was okay. But like, let's say you're in a bar and it's dark, which is what you are doing in El Salvador. You're in a restaurant or you're a bar and it's going to be dark in most restaurants. And the phone, the merchant device is going to be incredibly bright. And so if the camera doesn't automatically adjust the brightness, then your QR code is just blasted out. It's too bright to read. And then what you have to do is you have to move the phone closer until you get like within the right camera focal range. And so here's the funny thing that happened with my camera today, with this particular phone and this particular phone, it just so happened that the correct focal range was like right about here. Okay. With the one in El Salvador, the correct focal range, just depending on the size of the QR code, it was like a little bit sized differently. So the correct focal range was like right here, and it made it so that part of the QR code was being chopped off. So
Stefan, what you're saying is making so much of sense to me, because here in the Netherlands, we have the app to show that you've had your corona vaccination. And when you want entry into, I suppose it's the same in all the countries, when you want entry, you have to open the app. And the first thing that I noticed was not in the US, okay, well,
not in all countries.
Probably the same in Germany, right?
Yeah.
And the first thing I noticed, Christoph knows what I'm going to say, is that when the QR code opens, the screen on my phone automatically just goes super bright. And when I first noticed that, I was like, what is that? Why are they making my screen bright? But exactly what you're saying, now it's making sense to me, why it automatically makes my screen bright so that the other person can, clearly view it. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, I also had a moment a couple of weeks ago where I saw someone who had to check all the QR codes, and they were sitting in front of a laptop and they're like, moving the phone, just twisting it slightly closer, going a bit further away. And it took like every QR, they had to constantly scan QR codes, and every single one, they had to do this little dance. That's just funny. But,
yeah.
I have an older Android phone too. And the difference between QR code size detection is huge. On an iPhone, it can be really tiny and it can be a little bit, blurry even a little bit. And on an Android phone that I've tried, it has to pretty much fill the screen for it to work. So it's the hardware, and it's probably also the software, how well it can automatically adjust the focus and whatnot.
Oh, we just had they just dropped out.
Tough.
You're right. And so it's not just a Muun issue. It's an issue, I think, with I don't know if the issue is specific to Android, because here's the thing, they can open on. What I witnessed with these devices is you can take the Android phone and you can go to the stock camera app and you can focus on, you can refocus the image very beautifully. So the stock Android camera app works. So that leads me to believe that the issue is not with the hardware, it's with whatever library is being used to integrate with these wallet apps. Could be wrong on that. So it's not a Muun specific issue, but I would like to open up an issue with them about it, just because I have replicated the problem in their app, but I'd also plan to try and document this issue where I see it with other Lightning wallets, because it's a huge user experience issue when something that should take 5 seconds takes like 60 seconds because people are messing with their phone. And when you have a whole table of 4 people trying to make Lightning payments, and if 3 of them are on Android, it's not a good look.
Yeah, I mean, that's where NFC could also help a lot. You just tap them together and it transmits the data.
Maybe that's an important thing. I know I've seen a lot of people talking about that in the Slack lately. Just, could you add that as like a fallback for people who don't want to do the QR codes? I think Johns has proposed LN URL pay, as like more of a default, because the LN URL QR codes are much less dense. You don't have as much data in them, so the QR code ends up being a lot more low resolution, which would work, because if your QR code doesn't have as much data, then it doesn't matter if the camera can focus; it can still read it.
Yeah,
that's what I got. That's all I got for Muun for today.
Yeah, cool. Mo, do you have any questions on
No, this was such a wonderful learning experience for me because, it's been all the theory that I've been getting in my head over the last couple of months. I'm now seeing you talking about it, but it's like you're talking about it in such a practical, user-friendly way that sort of all these things came back to me. And I'm seeing how you're applying heuristics, which is what we call in UX, to the whole analysis process that you're doing. So it's been really interesting for me to see how this is done. Yeah, really interesting.
Awesome. Yeah. And, one of the things we try to do after this, and I think Stephen has taken notes here, a lot of these applications that we look at are open source. So we can go to their GitHub repository and we can open issues and say, hey, we found this problem here and here. Here's how you reproduce it. And then we can, they chime in and there's a conversation there. And then these reviews ideally directly inform and help make the product better. So we get a good conversation out of this, and we get some nice screens to look at and screenshots. And the product also gets better because we can provide the direct feedback to them. So it's kind of a win-win for everyone here.
I really enjoyed this. I'll definitely download the app of the next one whenever that will be, presumably after Christmas, I guess. So, yeah.
Awesome. Stephen, did you want to, we're like
I think
55 minutes in. We
about
wrap
to
it
say,
up? Or?
yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead and kill the recording. So
Yeah.
we are done.